Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Mystery Read Reads. Today we have a beta read in Concrit, so let's have a look at what we are. We have Oceans, Kentucky 19, or Ocean, yeah, I'm assuming Oceans, Kentucky 19 has requested a beta read in Concrit. As this one's 36 chapters. They did not specify which one they wanted me to look at. So we'll just take a look at one of the two. Maybe we'll choose. So let's see. We've got 6 chapters on this one. For my beta read in Concrit, I'm only going to do the first chapter and kind of talk about it, and then we'll wrap up after the first chapter. And we may or may not continue, or maybe we'll come back and do another episode, beta reading, concreting the story we do not choose today. So let's just have a look. Both of these are Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I believe. Okay, yes. I'm actually going to opt for this one up here because I can and will beta read and concrete anything. It's going to be much harder for me to concrete basically, I guess, a fandom I don't work in. But I'm not going to narrow this channel to only one fandom, because I can do the read and then we can talk about why or what I don't know and how that affects my read in concrete. That'll be the funny thing about fan fiction is it's you're reading and writing in a world that is already established. And so if your reader is not familiar with it, they're going to get a blind immersive experience, hopefully. But it's kind of like being, I guess, thrown into the water and being like, oh, what's going on here? Who are these characters? Are they supposed to, is this how they really authentically speak and act? Because if your character is not in character, a person who's not familiar with the fandom will not know that. And so that could be about one of the only conflicting things I see in concreting and beta reading for something that is not what I'm used to. But that said, I'm willing to try, and you never know, maybe I'll become a fan too. So I do not particularly know very much about Rise of the TMNT, the 2018 verse, but I do generally know the Turtles, and I can kind of probably get in there and figure it out. I know they're a little bit different in this incarnation, but I'm guessing the personalities are generally the same. I wonder how much it would affect my read. So I'm kind of curious about that. I would choose this one because I can jump right in and kind of get the thing. See, they've got Rise in here, but they've also got other incarnations. So I'm guessing in this situation, you would kind of pick the incarnation that you're familiar with, which I'm very familiar with 2012 and the 90s and the Bay movies. And I'm a little bit familiar with 2007. I've watched a couple of episodes of it, enough to kind of know what I'm doing. So let's see, this one's called Huntsman. I think this might be the one they originally asked me to beta for them. This is rated explicit. So I guess curse words don't bother me, but they do bother YouTube. So I would just kind of hopefully use my common sense and not speak them when I see them. If there's explicit acts, we may just skip over those parts and move on. But if we're looking at a first chapter, typically those things don't happen right out the gate. But sometimes they do, and that's what makes a throw them in the action kind of start. All right, so nothing brittle breaks clean, and like those pieces of broken shards, Tala Huntsman has a disconnected reality that shatters when her downward spiral is ensnared by the Hamato clan. These are not gentle times. Peace is held together by dynasties and blood of the alien war. But even with hard, brutal creatures, only the simple desires are what truly keep us together. This is kind of a little bit of a poetic prose there. I kind of like it. I like the feel of that. This story is about Tala Huntsman and how her world is changed by the heroes of New York. Whether she saves them or they save her, everyone plays a part, and what an interesting game this has turned out to be. All right, we have 909 hits, 4 bookmarks, 18 kudos on 36 chapters, 246,000 words, and published in May. Let's see. Interesting. Maybe it shows us the most recent date of an update, because It's been a while since she asked me to do this crit, or this person asked me. I don't actually know. Okay, let's see. Let's dive in here and just see what we've got. If we open, here we go. Okay. We have our summary. We've already read that. Oh, good. There's no T-cest. To each their own, but when I'm trying to not read explicit things, that's probably for the best. Let's see. I'm having a cup of hot chocolate today. All right, let's see. It's taking me, we're going to read the author's note. It's in the beginning. Some author's notes are at the bottom, and we're going to go ahead and get this because it'll give us some pretext. Let's see what we've got. It's taken me nearly a year to write this monster of a story. It's dark, I won't lie. Oh, Lord. It's just, it gets messed up, and it was really just a personal project to get comfortable writing again. I explore a lot of dark and psychological subject matter. If you don't like dark material, tread cautiously. I don't avoid topics that come naturally for me to write about given my own background knowledge and extensive research. They are the turtles. They are a plot device in this, and to be fair, I don't go by any one specific interpretation of them. I wrote them as a whole, as how I would expect them to be as if given life and after a world-changing alien war. They are still witty, sarcastic, charming, and lethal ninjas, but just as much they are independent thinking individuals. I don't treat them here as perfect boyfriend types. They are rational, subjective, and have their own motives. I think their less perfect hero complex selves and more animistic, mature, strategic, and combat-heavy personas are interesting to write. Interesting. Okay. I'm an admirer of Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird comics, which I'm going to pause there because these are dark. And I haven't read many. I honestly don't think I've read any of the originals, but I have read a book that is all about how the turtles got started, who they were when they began, what they were like. And so we're talking dark and gritty here, which, honestly, I kind of like that. So I thought the style and characters they wrote were iconic. I am also inspired by the first TMNTs in 1990. I think the voice actors played into the script by Todd Langen and Bobby Herbeck perfectly. The darker themes and ambience the film crew depicted was immersive and much more real to life given the rough American superhero fiction it was based off of. Ooh, I like all that. I like that too. There is a gritty darkness to American superheroes from the 90s that really speaks to me and my writing style. And I try to allow the flow of realism and humanity come out through in my artistic expression. To note at the top of these chapters, I'll write a little, hey, thanks for reading. And if you want to chat, comment below. I'll keep posting because I love this story and how it's evolved. So right off, I like the tone here. I like the mindset, and I can relate. Kind of how I started writing for the Turtles was that there were stories I really wanted them to make movies that looked and felt like the original 90s movie, but I wanted them to do a little more. I wanted them to look more realistic because our technology now allows that. And I think we got a more realistic feel for them in the Bay movies, although the story was weak, in my opinion. What I want is a real heartfelt story, and I want them to be the ninjas they are. I want them to use their daggone weapons, and I don't mind if there's blood. I feel like we owe it to them to be authentic to who they were. I know there's talk that they're making a movie out of The Last Ronin. I don't know that I want to see that, because the story that I want to see isn't the death of the turtles. It's the story. It's the middle. I want that. I don't mind that rated R thing. I don't mind that. I don't even mind a PG-13, whatever. I want to see them use weapons. I don't mind any blood. And I want a real heartfelt story where you are right there with them and you're feeling the feels. Because at the heart of it, one of the things we all love about the Turtles is that we can all relate to at least one, if not all of them. They appeal to the people who feel like misfits, who don't feel like they fit in, who might feel lonely, they appeal to people who don't have money. They appeal to people who have been at the rock bottom. They appeal to angry people. They appeal to smart people. They appeal to the lighthearted. They appeal to the type A personality. They appeal to everyone for all these different reasons, and they appeal for the family aspects of it. And one of the things I write is I write romance for them because I believe everybody deserves to be loved, and I think they're no exception. So I write the story that I wanted to read, and it sounds like this author has done the same thing. And so we're going to dive in and check it out. Chapter 1, Behind the Curtain. This intro is about Tala. Okay, so here's the thing. If I'm going to give a little bit of a crit right here, this intro is about Tala and her brother Bruno coming back to New York after traveling. So when you're writing, this is not part of the story, but we're telling what's happening as we dive in. Ideally, to up your ante a little bit, you want to incorporate this information into the story. So we may get down here and find that it's already said or it's already shown in the story. And if that is the case, then excellent. We don't even need this note. So one thing I would look at is I shouldn't need this note. Okay, I get the author insight up here, but when it comes to the story, we want it to speak for itself and to tell itself. And so we don't want to do the setting right here. We want to put it right in here somewhere. So let's I'm going to go ahead and read this, and then we're going to see if it happens to explain itself down here. If it doesn't, then my suggestion is to incorporate this information into this opening chapter because that's where it belongs. All right, so that said, this intro is about Tala and her brother Bruno coming back to New York after traveling. They'd picked up a job right as they were getting back. The person they are saving just happening to be a giant mutant turtle. As easy and seamless as it appears, the rescue was, do not be deceived. Nothing is simple here, and even with this one going well, be prepared for what's to come. It's a little foreshadowing, but your story can do that in here. So I stand by my crit. So let's go on down here. Chapter 1, Behind the Curtain. The familiarity was instantaneous. The short distance between lights, quick turns, and almost gliding ease I had getting through my city. It was like magic. I'd missed this, though the island we'd been staying at was always a reprieve. Okay. Technically, there's nothing wrong with this. It's a little bit long. We got 1, 2, 3 commas. I'd probably either look at breaking this into 2 sentences, but we're not going to linger on it. We're going to move on. So the familiarity is instantaneous. The short distance between lights, quick turns, and almost gliding ease. I had getting through my city. It was like magic. The familiarity. I missed this, though the island we'd been staying at was always a reprieve. All right, let's keep going. There was something in the air, other than the odd swaths of perfumed garbage. Something made me comfortable in an instant, like a rush of warmth that made all the fast-paced movement beat as one. I could listen to the sound of Bruno's sleepy mumblings while I navigated and brought us closer to home than we'd been in months. But I knew better than to relax too much. Okay, there was something in the air other than the odd swaths of perfumed garbage. I would not use the word perfumed here. Perfume typically appeals to the senses as something smelling good. We all know garbage does not, and so the word is not helping here. It's actually kind of a distraction. I just take it right out and keep going. Odd swaths of garbage, fine. Yeah, that would be fine. Just take out perfume to move on. We've got a little extra space right here. Not a big deal. There was something in the air other than the odd swaths of garbage. Something made me uncomfortable in an instant. Okay, you don't need to say in an instant. I just omit that and just say something was making me made me comfortable in an instant. Something made me comfortable in an instant. Hold, please. I thought we were saying uncomfortable. So there was something in the air other than, okay. So there's a little bit of back and forth in this sentence. We've got, there's something in the air that made them comfortable, other than the stench of garbage, basically. But when you're trying to imply or instill or give a sensation, you're not going to instill comfort with even mention of garbage. You're like, you cringe a little bit here, and you know that you're supposed to be feeling cozy over here, and so you're losing your effect by having the kind of knee-jerk kind of thing right here. I would personally, if I'm trying to make the person feel cozy and like, are we going home? I get the sensation of all the cozy feelings. What is it they like? What is a good smell that they like? What is the energy like? What does it feel like? What are we looking at? So there was something in the air. What is that something? And what does that feeling feel like? Can you describe it? Can you use a noun, a thing, a person, place, or a thing other than garbage that is more associated with comfortable? You can mention the stench of garbage somewhere in here if you really like to. I get wanting to make it clear that, hey, it didn't smell that great, but I like it. So there was something in the air other than odd swaths of perfumed garbage. Something made me comfortable in an instant. I was thinking uncomfortable, and I actually even misread that because I was stuck with garbage being a yuck feeling. So we've lost our little feeling right there. Okay, I'm going to move on. Like a rush of warmth that made all the fast-paced movement beat as one. Are we in a car? Are we in a car? Not really sure. I could listen to the sound of Bruno's sleepy mumblings while I navigated and brought us closer to home than we'd been in months. But I knew better than to relax too much. Okay. Because tonight we didn't have the courtesy of taking our time. We were traveling and we had to be careful. He was sleeping in the back while I drove us. Okay, we are in a car. We had just crossed over a bridge and all I wanted to do was sleep another 5 hours. But I couldn't be mad at the lights that bathed me while we drove along. It would be easy tonight, quiet and simple. I'm a little flip-flop back and forth here. We don't have the courtesy of taking our time, but it's going to be an easy night that's quiet and simple. Whatever the feel is that we're going for, we want to be consistent, and every sentence that we use, we want it to support the overall feel that we're going for. I'm a little confused if we're in a hurry. I do know that our character is tired. I couldn't be mad at the lights that bathed me while we drove along. It would be easy tonight, quiet and simple. I just have we don't have time, and yet it's going to be easy, quiet and simple. I would do something to make those either we're in a hurry and I'm going to instill urgency, or we're having a relaxing, laid back time. But up here, we've already said we can't relax too much. So I'm unclear as to what that means. It hints that there's something that would keep us from chilling out. But I don't know if that's a time limit or an appointment. We're going to keep reading and find out. We were just crossing over into New York City. Manhattan, the busy little island that it was, all tall and imposing with these tiny people everywhere. The lights were bright, and just as we were getting off a major exit, I had to slam on my brakes and laid on my horn. The red minivan pulled out of the stop sign before even gracing the brake pedal and now was staring like an idiot through their windshield. Oh. Well, I think we need the word driver right here. The driver of the red minivan pulled out because the driver is the person staring like an idiot through the windshield. The red minivan is not. So we need the driver of, right in here. The driver of the red minivan pulled out of the stop sign before even gracing the brake pedal and now was staring like an idiot through their windshield. Are they staring at the driver who is also our character here? I'm going to say yes, because we're read on. I cursed and gave them a mean look after checking I wasn't going to have someone eat my back end. They seemed This sentence could possibly go up here with this other paragraph. It doesn't need to stand out. Except maybe if you wanted to, I guess it could, because they cursed, and so you're saying they spoke. But we were still with them up here. So totally whatever you want. You can leave it where it's at, or you can move it up. They seemed to get the glaze out of their eyes when I repeatedly honked and let off and honked and let off my horn. Throwing me the bird as I grinned and kept making a noise as they were literally blocking me from driving. They seemed to get the glaze out of their eyes when I repeatedly honked and let off my horn. I'd take this part out. Throwing me the bird as I grinned and kept making a noise. How about making noise? Just take that out, because I'm like, what noise are they making? I'm guessing it's the honking of the horn. I'd just drop the A. As they were blocking me from driving. We're going to talk about this real quick. Okay, so I do use adverbs. I try to use them sparingly, because when you dive into writing for publishing and writing professionally, they're kind of generally discouraged. I do use them when I feel like I need them, or I really like having it before my verb. In this case, I don't think you need it. And generally, one of the ways to identify your adverbs is they typically end in ly, and you will find them next to a verb. So in this case, I would omit it. It's not helping you. Throwing me the bird as I grinned and kept honking. I would say honking or making noise. Okay, making noise as they were blocking me. I'd say blocking my way. We already know they're driving. Sometimes less words is more. It'll clean up your sentence and you'll like it better. Throwing me the bird as I grinned and kept making noise as they were blocking my way, as they blocked my way. Throwing me the bird. Something's missing here. They seemed to get the glaze out of their eyes when I repeatedly honked my horn. Throwing me the bird. How about they flipped me the bird, but I just grinned and kept making noise as they blocked my way. There you go. They started pulling out more and then began backing up just as they hit the person speeding up to the decorative stop sign. Okay. Every noun does not require an adjective. Stop sign doesn't need one, and it's not particularly decorative unless it's fancy because they're in a neighborhood. But we are done. I think we were just getting off an exit. Yeah, we just got an exit. That's not a fancy stop sign. It's a regular one. They started pulling out more and then began backing up just as they hit the person speeding up to the stop sign. The wreck was quick and looked like it shook the driver, who again looked at me as I pulled around them and kept on. I was sure they were cursing me, as they were not going to try and take the blame for what was clearly their fault. This sentence could go up here as well. And I didn't really care as I tried shaking it off and driving south to get downtown. We had a show to get to, and we were not missing it. Okay, really quick. Typically, if you start a sentence with the word and, you can just drop the and you got a sentence. You don't need it. Although if you like it, you can keep it. I would be very careful about how frequently you use it. And yes, I do have a couple of those in my writing, but I also use them sparingly. All right, so, and I didn't really care as I tried shaking it off and driving south to get downtown. So let's pretend the and isn't there. I didn't really care as I tried shaking it off. Driving, I would say, comma, and omit the and say driving south to get downtown. Also, just to be clear, by saying that I don't know if it's a him or a her, by saying that they don't care and they're trying to shake it off means they do care. So as long as that's what you want your reader to feel, then we're good here. Next, we had a show to get to. We want TO, not TOO. TO is to get to, and TOO means also. And we were not missing it. I found parking in the garage, and as I turned to see Bruno resting, he was already suited up and pulling down the passenger seat to give me room to dress. We might need a comma in there. That's kind of a long sentence. I found parking in the garage, and as I turned to see Bruno, how about this? As I turned toward Bruno, expecting him to still be asleep, I was surprised to find he was already suited up and pulling down the passenger seat to give me room to dress. Something like that. I think you need 2 sentences here. I made quick work in our silence. I made quick work in silence. You can just omit our. Wrapping my dress and pinning it while he placed his mask on and climbed out of the van. I pulled my hair back, letting it down in dark waves. You can omit its dark waves and put on my mask. I was ready to sleep, but just as I was to leave out the back doors, he handed me my toothbrush and paste to freshen my McDonald's-esque fragrance. I obliged, and then we headed out. Okay, let's have a look at this. I was ready to sleep. So we're getting ready to go and do something, but we're tired. So you might think of another way to imply that this person is tired. Also, we are all the way down there, and I do not know the gender of this person, nor do I know this person's name, unless I reflect back up here to where I was told that this is Tala and she is female. Really, ideally, this information would be found somewhere in here early on. Right away, you want your reader to be grounded in their story with the identifying with the character that is telling it, and you kind of want them to have a little idea of who this person is, what they look like, just so they can kind of picture and relate to them right away. What I know so far is this character is driving a car. They've parked. They're going to a show of some sort, and that they're tired. They can't relax too much. We don't know why. So we got some stuff going on. Let's keep going. I was ready to sleep. I was whooped, or I was exhausted. Something other than saying I was ready to sleep, because this implies you're ready to go to bed, but we know you're going to a party. I was exhausted, but just as I was about to leave out the back doors, we don't usually say leave out the back doors of a car. Just as I was about to climb out, Bruno handed me my toothbrush. I would omit the paste part, just handed me my toothbrush, or handed me a mint. And McDonald's-esque is fine, but I would clearly just say breath. Okay, fragrance implies something smells good, typically, not always, but generally speaking, when your reader is reading, you want to go with something that immediately the brain relates to the sensation that you want them to have. Stench, you could say stench, you can say breath, you could say grossness, something not pleasant. A word that quickly instills in the brain not pleasant. When your reader reads, you want them to get a seamless read, getting exactly the feels that you want, the impressions, the sensations, all the things all the senses you're appealing to when telling the story. I obliged, and then we headed out. So you could just say he tossed you a mint to freshen up your McDonald's-esque breath. You obliged, and then you headed out. His gloves were long in a thin leather fabric. His bald head mask cleaned and dark against the white collar of his shirt. Wait, so does Bruno have a bald head, or is his mask cleaned and dark? His bald head mask cleaned and dark. I am a little confused. His gloves were long in a thin leather fabric. His bald head masked, cleaned and dark. I'm just going to say I would work on this right here, because I am unclear if the mask I'm guessing the mask is cleaned and dark, but was the mask dirty before? Is Bruno bald, or is the mask a bald-headed mask? Okay. Need clarity on this sentence. I'm confused by it. We're going to move on. I can't even fix it because I'm unclear of what the appearance is that you're going for. So some tweaking up there. My shoes popped together in his hand, and he used the other to lead me to the double doors where Bruno handed the smaller masked man our invitation while I laced up. Okay, so Bruno's the dude you're walking with. So my shoes popped together in his hand. I guess that's a sound. Maybe they clicked. Okay, my shoes popped together in his hand, and he used the other to lead me to the double doors where I would move Bruno down here. My shoes popped together in Bruno's hand. My shoes popped together in Bruno's hand, and he used the other to lead me to the double doors, handing the smaller masked man that greeted us our invitation. Well, I'd just omit while I laced up. I'd omit that. Also, I want to point out, it says while I laced up. What are you lacing up? Because if it's your shoes, they're in Bruno's hand. So how are you lacing them up? Did he hand you the shoes? No, he handed the smaller masked man our invitation. Okay. Take my notes, my thoughts there, and put that suggested rewording of the sentence and omitting this or clarifying what it is that she's lacing up. He smiled at us and the doors opened for our entrance. You don't need to say for our entrance. We already know that the doors open, you're going in. It implies entry. So one thing is when you're rereading your work, if you have said too many words, because the action already says what is happening, you can just omit some things, which is much easier to take things out than sometimes it is to rework things or put them in. So be grateful for that one. He smiled at us and the doors opened. I wrapped my hand around Bruno's arm and without being too obvious, led us to our seats. Without being too obvious, I just wrapped my hand around Bruno's arm and led us to our seats. What are you not trying to be obvious about? Is there someone here, or you don't want to be noticed? I'm guessing. We don't want to be telling, okay? So you can let things unfold and you don't have to hint at each thing or whatever it is you're ultimately getting to. You can let it be. It'll be okay. You can show feelings if she's nervous or anything like that. You can show that by, I wrap my hand around Bruno's arm and squeezed. If she's nervous, whatever. Or if there's no feelings right now, I wrap my hand around Bruno's arm and led us to our seats. Let's see. The box we bought was small and in the back to keep the lights off of us and gave us overhead access to the stage. I could feel his anticipation next to me as his large arm curved over my chair and as the light touching scrape of his thumb played with the seam on the back. Okay. The box we bought was small and in the back. Good. We chose these seats to keep the lights off of us and give us overhead access to the stage. Okay, I'm going to give those two suggestions and then I'm going to go right here and say something else. I could feel his anticipation next to me. Okay, so I try to avoid saying I can feel. And you will see the words I could feel or I felt everywhere. Typically, and this is a personal choice, I try not to say I could feel, and you'll probably find it in my writing too, especially my earlier works before this became a thing for me. I try not to say I could feel because I found this on the web. Oh, Siri's helping us. I try to say I could feel because I think that it's a bit telling instead of showing. So what I would do, or she could even say I felt, but I like something other than I could feel his anticipation next to me. Maybe Bruno is doing something that gives a clear message to Tala. I think her name was Tala. Just zip back up here really quick. I think her name is Tala. Yes. That he's anxious. So think about, what does a person do when they're anxious? They wring their hands. Their leg might thump up and down. They might fidget, or sometimes they just radiate off this really tense energy that sensitive people might pick up on. So what I would try to do here is describe one of those three things, or something you come up with on your own. Visualize what it is. Imagine Bruno sitting next to you. You know how you want him to present how he feels, and you want to describe what Tala sees that makes it clear to her that he's anxious. And you don't want to do it in a whole lot of words. You want to get it across pretty quick. Bruno was wringing his hands beside me as his large arm's going to curve over her chair. That's kind of a relaxed pose. Okay, so that is relaxing. So maybe Bruno was fidgety or wiggly, or Bruno was thumping his leg or his foot, I guess you would say. It might be clearer to a reader. Bruno was thumping his foot beside me as his large arm curved over my chair, and as the light touching scrape of his thumb played with a seam on the back. Okay, is Bruno her brother? Okay, so yeah. Typically, my brother should not curve his arm over the back of my chair as adults. I guess he could, because boys also sprawl out wherever they're at, but all of those things also imply that he is not anxious. Instead, he is relaxing, because that's how dudes are. And a light touch also typically doesn't imply anxiousness to me. I don't know how anxious he is. He may just be eager. Okay, so if he's eager to do whatever it is they've come to do, you might say something that describes that he's eager, which might also be a leg thump, to be honest. Sometimes when I'm gearing up to get ready to do something, I've got my foot is thumping and my leg is bouncing up and down, and I'm ready to go. So Bruno was bouncing his leg beside me as he reached over the back of my chair and began toying with the seam on the back of it. Reached over my chair and began toying with the seam in the back. There we go. The lights were already dim as we took our seats, and though it was quiet in the audience, the play that was to come only came as the appetizer. That's not a terrible sentence, okay? So I kind of like this a little bit. It's a little long. The lights were already dim. The lights were down. The lights were down as we took our seats, and though it was quiet in the audience, the play that was to come only came as the appetizer. I'm going to leave it. He seemed entranced in the ballet performance while a man in a blue suit came to our seats. You don't have to say performance, but there's nothing wrong with it. I'm going to move on. One other quick thing. We have lots of tiny little paragraphs. You might look back and see what can be grouped together, because they go way back up there, and I'm not going to go back up. I'm going to lose my spot. But I have meant to mention that. Look for things. If the sentences can be grouped together, typically 4 sentences makes a paragraph. Sometimes they're longer, of course, because there might be more information or more action happening in them. All right, so there's a man in a blue suit that has approached the seats. I turned out of my chair, and he held out his hand for our identification cards. Period. I would make that a period. I supplied them, and he took a look at Bruno. Without missing a beat, he unsheathed his glove just to grasp the bottle of wine prepared for us to hand to the attendant before returning to the performance. Wait, what? Who did the dude? Okay, so the dude's giving them a bottle of wine. I turned out of my chair, and he held out his hand for identification. Period. I supplied them, and he took a look at Bruno. Without missing a beat, I might say period, maybe. Without missing a beat, that could also be the beginning of a sentence. Without missing a beat, he unsheathed his glove. Okay. Is Bruno unsheathing his glove? Or is it the blue, also This is sweet, not, okay, so blue suite. Suite is a room. So drop your E, that'd be suit, blue suit. Came to our seats. I turned out of my chair and held his cards, period. I supplied them and he took a look at Bruno, period, without missing a beat. Oh, what can we call blue suit guy? I have the feeling this is blue suit guy. The man unsheathed his glove and just take out just, omit just. By the way, that's another one of those words. You can probably scan your document for the word just, and most of the time you'll be able to omit it as well. Unsheathed his glove to grasp the bottle of wine prepared for us. Maybe up here mention that he's holding a man in a blue suit. Okay, I'm just gonna, you gotta figure that one out. Prepared for us to hand to the attendant. Okay, wait. For returning to the performance. Oh my goodness. All right, so this is where I'm going to go with this sentence. I turned out of my chair and he held out his hand for identification cards, period. I supplied them and he took a look at Bruno, period. Or either that or he looked toward Bruno. Without missing a beat, he unsheathed his glove to grasp the bottle of wine prepared for us to hand to the attendant before returning to the performance. I don't know. I'm a little confused. I'm a little confused. Who's handing the man in the blue suit's the attendant? Who's returning to the performance? The attendant is not in the performance, or are Bruno and Tyler returning their attention to the performance? Okay, so my thoughts are, make it very, very clear who is doing what, and that's where I'm going to leave that. We're going to move on. The gesture showing he was paying close attention. The man had seen his hand and nodded before handing me back my information cards. Oh, okay, so attendant man is still there and waiting for me to take my seat before leaving. Why did Tella stand up in the first place? Was she letting him over toward Bruno? And now she's taking her seat. Okay, just whatever my suggestion is, to make this very clear who's doing what and think about why they're doing it. You don't want to over-explain, but at the same time, you want to give enough that your reader very clearly knows who's doing what and why. Bruno sat comfortably in his seat. Okay. Rather than saying that he's sitting comfortably, give Bruno an action that demonstrates that he's comfortable. Like, as I mentioned before, sprawling out the way men do, or stretching out his legs, or slouching a little bit, something that implies that he's comfortable, because this is telling. Okay. Bruno sat comfortably in his seat as he let me idly play with the rings on his fingers in the shadows. Long, slender with claws, the hair was ever present on his knuckles, but the fur that traveled from a little behind the ends of his knuckles up his arm was thick and clean black. Okay, so I'm guessing he's a hairy dude. Typically, if this is her brother, I would not be playing with the rings on my brother's fingers. I just wouldn't be doing that. That'd be something I would do with someone that I was romantically involved with. I almost feel like I need to go back and find out if she's with Bruno, but I'm pretty sure Bruno was her brother. Am I mistaken? Okay, just moving on. Bruno sat comfortably in his seat as he let me idly play with the rings on his fingers in the shadows. Long, slender with claws, the hair was ever present on his knuckles, but the fur that traveled from a little behind the ends of his knuckles up his arm was thick and clean black. So maybe this dude is not full human, and he's got some hairy hands, but he has full-on fur. It's a possibility. We don't know. And we know that in the turtle world, all things are game. So he's got... Also... so I can kind of roll with that, but this is a run-on sentence. So find a spot to break it and make it into two sentences. The width alone of his hand showed a strong muscled structure not unlike the rest of him. Okay. We were here for the auction, an illegal sale and trade of people. Technically, we were not in on the bidding, but we would be adding to the pool. All right. We were here for the auction, an illegal sale and trade of people, period. Technically, comma, we were not in the bidding, but we would be adding to the pool. Bruno was an expert at this. While I managed the human interests, he was a scout, able and acute at finding what people were hiding. It was a new age of gambling, structured out of the norm, and a market as niche as gemstones. Available in the dark, muddy trenches were fools tried their luck only to drown. Where fools? Yes. Available in the dark, muddy trenches where fools tried their luck only to drown. Got it. Just as the curtains came down, maybe a comma there, maybe. The voices rose as the audience began paying attention. Okay. Just as the curtains came down, the voices rose as the audience quieted or grew quiet. Or you can leave, began paying attention. Although that feels more telling than showing the action of them quieting down. That's how it feels anyway. You have a very eloquent tone to your writing that you're going for a very nice kind of, you have a nice prose, and you don't want to pull away from it or detract from that. So just as the curtains came down, the voices rose as the audience quieted. And that would stay with your beautiful prose. That would stay in your flow. Many people left while some sat in comfortable silence. Wait, many people left. So the curtains are down, it's gotten quiet, and people are getting up to leave. That's odd. I'm assuming those people are going to the auction. But if there's a backstage or somewhere in the building auction going down, everyone's not going to get up to leave at the same time. So it seems very strange that the curtains go down, everybody gets quiet, and then a bunch of people get up to leave. We were no different, waiting for the curtains for the next performance. There was a boisterous young blood down in the trenches trying to convince the ticket man that he was there for the next ballet as well. Okay. I'm a little unclear what's happening, but we're going to roll with it. It was very obvious that he was not, but his badly trimmed whiskers and dirty leather made it obvious he was a nouveau riche. Okay. It was very obvious that he was not, comma, but his badly trimmed whiskers and dirty leather made it obvious he was a nouveau riche. He would be taken outside quickly, and as he made spectacle, probably would never come back. I didn't blame him. The next event was more interesting, but you didn't get to be part of it unless you were selected. They probably already took the chest in the van out and placed it in the back. We were just waiting for the ticket of choice. We didn't get to wager more than what we brought, and that ticket gave us a choice within the color pool we qualified for. So our writer's trying to describe, I guess, how the auction kind of works. Here's the thing. You've said this person's noisy and they're making a fuss and they're getting drug out and they're not coming back. Who is it that you didn't blame? You could probably omit that altogether. And this could just be an observation. And because if you didn't blame him, I don't understand. You didn't feel annoyed by the noise? Or did you have a thought about the person? I kind of like just going with, it's just an observation. I would just omit this. The next event was more interesting, but you didn't get to be part of it unless you were selected. Period. They probably already took the chest in the van out and placed it in the back. Period. We were just waiting for the ticket of choice. We didn't get to wager more than what we brought, and that ticket gave us a choice within the color pool we qualified for. So yeah, mostly these commas need to be periods. Otherwise, you got a really big long run on. And as I look back at this, it's probably fine. It's probably fine because of what you say next. So I would just swap my commas out for periods. Bruno leaned over to my ear, his rubber latex scent just lightly coming through as he spoke. What? Why does this man smell like rubber latex? What? Hang on. I'm unsure why this man smells like rubber latex. I have never, and you have no context for why he smells this way. It's just his natural scent. Maybe we could, if it is his natural scent, maybe we say that. I'm just a little, this one's striking me as odd. Here's what we don't want. We don't want our reader to do what I'm doing right now, going, wait, what? Bruno leaned over to, you don't have to say he leaned over to my ear. Bruno leaned toward me. His scent just lightly coming through as he spoke. Okay. If you love this, keep it. That's up to you. I'm really confused by it, and so I wouldn't want my reader to be confused. So Bruno leaned toward me. Bruno leaned toward me. If you have a scent for, I guess if you want him to be a rubber latex scent coming through as he spoke, we have quotation marks here. So we have just said that Bruno's going to speak, and this is Bruno speaking. Okay, you can move this right up here. Okay, and you don't have to have this tag if you don't want it. It's an option. Okay, you can leave it as it is. But if all this was just to say that Bruno spoke, you could even omit it and just say that Jacobson, who was causing a ruckus, has been let back in, comma, Bruno informed me. Or Bruno leaned toward me. That Jacobson, who was causing a ruckus, has been let back in. Period. Quotation marks. You can omit that. You have options there. I did not look back to where he probably was sitting. Period. He made the pool, and that means he was invited. Okay, so that implies that she's not saying that, but she knows the rules. Got it. Moving on. That was odd. I could usually point out every one of these people as they were the only ones invited every time. But this Jacobson was new, and that was not expected. What do you hear? I ask. He glances at the other boxes as he pats and then curls his fingers around my hand, not speaking while he turns to the door just as a man walks in after a brief knock. He hands out the ticket to Bruno, who gives it to me and then turns back to the stage. Okay, so they're in an audience. There's a ballet going on. A dude got kicked out, and another dude brought them wine, I'm guessing. Did he get... I'm a little confused. He glanced at the other boxes. Where's the boxes? Am I missing something? Oh, boxes in the seats. Okay, got it. He glances at the other boxes in the auditorium. I don't know. He glances at the other boxes as he pats and then curls his fingers around my hand, not speaking while he turns to the door just as a man walks in after a brief knock. Okay, I got it. He hands out the ticket to Bruno. Okay, he hands out the ticket to Bruno. The man that walked in walks straight over to Bruno and gives him a ticket, and Bruno gives it to her and then turns back to the stage. Okay, there's all these other people in the room, and he walks straight to Bruno. And all these other people are apparently here for the same thing. Yeah, okay, well, we're going to roll with it. It was edged with gold and a light lavender with a scent to it. Oh, the ticket has a scent. Interesting. These kinds of meticulous detail only arrived for those who didn't care. What? these kinds of meticulous details only arrived for those who didn't care. So, okay, so Bruno and Tala don't care about where they're at, and this scent is on their ticket to try to make them more interested. Those are my questions. If my thought there isn't correct, then I would just omit this sentence. Or if you, if the scent has a purpose, I'd leave in the scent. But if the scent does not have a purpose, I would just take it out. Unless, yeah, literally, if it doesn't have a purpose, I'd take it out. It's a distraction. If it has a purpose, leave it in. These kinds of meticulous details. Are they on all the tickets? This sentence confuses me, so you might need some clarification. I eyed Bruno. We were in second tier, which meant we were just under what we wanted. However, we were on a mission tonight for a specific pickup, but it wasn't until yesterday did we find out how many young mutants would be auctioned here. At that point, we already had the call, and since we didn't make the pool, we couldn't bid in it anyways. Okay, I have a bad habit of doing this too, and I'm now trying to stop. Many of my older works will have the ... It usually is for trailing off thoughts, but she has a pretty clear, complete thought here, so that's why I'm saying I would probably just change that to a plain period. I eyed Bruno. We were in the second. I guess I'm kind of confused as to how this auction is working, but I can see that you're trying to show how the auction works. So we're just going to keep going. I don't see anything wrong with that. We're going to keep going at this point. If that is correct. If we're just kind of showing, we're not meant to completely fully understand how the auction works, but I am getting more. So we're going to keep going. We would take what we could, but this was good. This means they were not broken yet. They would be whole and fresh, and that was what made a difference. Whoever it was we were getting, they still had their sanity being in the top 2 tiers. We would take what we could, but this could. I would look at this sentence purely for punctuation and comma placement. Potentially it could be 2 sentences. I have started reading, I'm not perfect with commas, but I've started reading my sentences as in where I want the pause to be. It doesn't always work that way. There are different rules for different situations in commas, but typically in this case, we would take what we could, comma, but this was good, or this wasn't bad, period. It meant they were not broken yet. I'm going to say this really quick, and it's completely some programs, if you run this through like a grammar program, they will flag where you've got a possibility to use a conjunction and you have chosen not to use one, and they'll flag it and suggest you use the conjunction. Personally, in fan fiction, I think it's fine, but if you want it, it's an option. You could go through and swap out the 2 words that make up a conjunction and use the conjunction instead, unless this is specifically what you want. So it's an opinion. There may be different rules, but when you have too many words in a sentence or a wordy sentence, you may swap it out for the conjunction. We would take what we could, comma, but this wasn't bad, period. It meant they weren't broken yet. They would be whole and fresh, period. That was what made a difference. So you've got that was, they would be, so they could be they'd be, and that's what made a difference. So you've got 3 instances in one sentence where you could be using a conjunction and would be less wordy. Less wordy give you a seamless read on a sentence so that it's very clear and precise. and breaking it up into 2 sentences. Those are my suggestions. Whoever it was we were getting, they still had their sanity being in the top 2 tiers. That's very clear and good. The curtains rose and the bidding began. The mutants on stage were depressing to look at, but Bruno was like marble, watching each one get bid on the next and the next. It eased my concerns, as when we had a distinct pickup, I got paranoid. I wonder, I don't know what a distinct pickup is. And I'm assuming that, I guess Bruno's take on it is comforting to her, that he's being hard. There's nothing wrong with this overall, as long as I'm a little confused by what distinct pickup means, and the mutants on the stage were depressing to look at. Okay. If you want to, you could describe one that stands out. We'll see what you do. Let's keep going. The purple group was ours. There were 4 of us, and we waited for the last one. The Jacobson bid on it. Oh, if this is that loudmouth guy that they were confused about, I wouldn't call him the Jacobson. I'd say Jacobson bid on it. Take out the large terrapin mutant was impressive, and when Bruno nodded to the man standing beside us, our bid was in and we got it. The opponent complained loudly before he was ushered out. The blue eyes of the mutant were noticeable as he was watching the dark crowd, but the most striking thing was his attention. Period. He looked right at our box when we won him. It shouldn't have been possible with the lights blinding the subjects, but I can almost swear he had no trouble seeing past them. I like this a lot. The story's very interesting. He was rolled out just as quickly as they brought him on stage, and then he would be packaged for us. We would have to leave then. Period. I stood and took Bruno's arm as we headed for the car they'd prepared for us. The mutant would be brought to our property while they auctioned on what we would have preferred the opportunity for. Okay, so they can only bid with, okay, got it. We passed through the backstage, and while we did not look in that direction, I knew the crying of the little ones was a piercing pain to my heart. Okay, you don't know that. You felt it, okay? The cries of the little ones, okay, I would say, while we did not look in that direction, the cries of the little ones pierced my heart. But there was little we could do. We were playing a long game as we left and climbed in the Lexus that was prepared for us. Bruno did not speak a sound as we drove off, period. The traffic not far behind holding our win. The traffic was not too far behind holding our win. I scrolled through my emails in the meantime, period. Many of our friends wanted to see what we were up to, but we never talked much. There was an unread message in a folder I had not touched yet, and it probably had something to do with our estate we were getting to. T-O, period, or getting also. I readjusted my mask and turned on the music as we took the long way home to calm our heads from the sound of the children. The penthouse elevator that transferred the cargo to the highest floor was dark when we entered. All was still and quiet with the exception to the fountain in the center. I walked over to it and sat on the marble, looking back at Bruno in our hall, period. He had the staff that came with it moved to the cell lock and then had it dropped and secured. They gave us the specialized sedative for it and went on their way. Okay. If it is the turtle, I would say for the mutant, and went on their way. All was still and quiet with the exception of the fountain in the center. I walked over to it and sat on the marble, looking back at Bruno in our hall, period. He had the staff. This is a little bit wordy. There's nothing technically wrong with it. It's just a little wordy. It could be a little bit smoother. So he had the staff. If this is the staff that came with the mutant, he had the staff move. I would just take that whole chunk out. He had the staff moved to the cell lock and then had it dropped and secured. They gave us the specialized sedative for the mutant and went on their way. The lights were dim as we watched him in silence. Bruno walked past me to the kitchen while I moved toward the mutant. You think he's hungry? I asked. Okay. If we are writing in past tense, we'll be very, very careful that we don't switch to present. I am guilty of this in some of my earlier writings. I've fixed some of it, but in others I have not, because I don't have it's about time, how much time I have to go back and revise things, especially on a fan fiction. It's more for myself and for my reader. You think he's hungry? I asked. Probably, was all Bruno said. I could tell he was watching him out of his peripheral vision while making himself a pot of tea. Looking at my email now, it seems like the woman will be here soon. Okay, looking at my email. Here's the thing. We don't want a comma there. It's going to be a statement that lets you know Tal is speaking. Looking at my email. This is what I would say. It seems like the woman will be here soon. Oh, because you're looking at, maybe that information's in the email. I don't know. You can use some clarity there, but you don't want a comma after just a sentence. So commas with dialogue go with a tag like she said, he said, those kind of tags. Not always. It could just be like, here we go. Don't, comma, I say, or I said. Again, this is present. So if you're in the past tense, say said. I'm going to back up just a little bit. Looking at my email, I murmured to myself, or I murmured something that if you give a speech, like a word that's like murmured, said, shouted, yelled, whispered, cried, any of those things, you could have the comma, is my understanding. Let's see. Looking at something bothers me about this. Okay. She's looking at her email, period. It seems like the woman will be here soon. Or I expect the woman will be here soon. I walk over to the kitchen as I see the turtle mutant wake. Oh, I didn't know he was sleeping. Do you think he's sleeping? I don't know that he'd be sleeping in this situation. Did he startle? Did he straighten? Okay, if he was sleeping, you might want to let me know that sooner, because I'm assuming he's still intently watching. Also, we've not described the crate or the cage. I don't know if it's bars. I don't know if it's a box crate. I don't know if, does it have holes in it? I have no idea what this crate looks like. So I'm assuming it's barred, and I thought he was standing there watching her. So you may want to clarify some of those things in some of the prior paragraphs where appropriate. I walk over to the kitchen as I see the turtle mutant wake. The jacket flung across the island was a usual sight, but the scotch on the counter was not a welcome accompaniment. Okay. What does the turtle waking? It does not seem... I don't know if I'd say anything about the turtle mutant right here, because what you're saying right here has nothing to do with him. And so that I'm pulled one way expecting there to be conversation or interaction with the turtle. At this point, there's not. You could even leave him sleeping. As I walked over to the kitchen, I noticed that the turtle mutant was sleeping. I don't know. I walked past the turtle mutant's crate on my way to the kitchen, and then the jacket flung across the island. This sentence is actually kind of good. I really kind of like it. It gives a visual, and it sets up your dialogue. But I would just say something maybe about walking past the crate, because seeing the turtle awake leads me to think you're about to interact with him. It doesn't seem like you are. Don't, I say. He gives me a look while he opens it. Oh, he's opening the scotch. Got it. Okay, and is this Bruno? Also, period. I'm not in a celebratory mood. He gestures the cup with ice over to the groaning mutant, period. He gestures with the cup toward the groaning mutant. Let's not have this conversation now. I gave him a sharp look, period. Save it for after the handoff. I might put a hyphen right there. Comma, then you don't get to disengage from the situation. He gently sets down the glass, period. I think I do get to, actually. He pours his glass and takes it up while he walks over, swaggering to the cage. Okay, so swaggering is a way to describe walking. So you could say, well, he swaggers toward the cage and just omit the walks over because it's redundant. Watching me the whole while. He knocks on the containment, period. I remember being kept in there, period. It's so sweet, comma. We keep it for show while the traffickers are here. Such a nice memento to our childhood. He takes a long sip. I kind of like that sentence. I look at him and then the now awake mutant, but I can't gauge his cognition. He groans with his head forward. Bruno says nothing while I step forward. Okay. You got a word echo here, which is using the word forward twice in the same sentence. He groans with his... you don't have to describe that. You can, the mutant lets out a groan while Bruno says nothing as I step forward. You'll be out of there soon, period. We are waiting for your friend, I say, trying to reassure him. The mutant male looks at me like I have 3 heads, then away again and shakes it. Funny, I don't believe you. He looks at Bruno and his eyes bulge before looking back at me again. Okay, so did the mutant just talk? Funny, I don't believe you. Okay, I think he did. I would say the mutant looked at Bruno. His eyes bulged before looking back at me again. You don't have to. Begin, then he cuts me off. Who began? Okay, I'm unclear who's speaking. I know, it makes me sigh. Just clarify who's speaking here. I'm a little bit confused by who's speaking. Come on, you are doing so well. Keep being nice, Bruno eggs me on. I frown at him and then say, if I let you out, will you believe me? The turtle slumps against the wall opposite me, giving me a weary glance as Bruno's smirk remains as he places the cup down. Okay. Who's giving you a weary glance? Is it Bruno? Okay, yeah. Giving me a weary glance. Who's giving you the weary glance? The turtle or Bruno? Bruno casts me a weary glance as he puts the smirking. Bruno casts me a weary glance as he places the cup down. I don't know if we need the weary glance. Unless the turtle, I'm confused. This sentence needs to be very clear to me. Who is giving the weary glance? If it's Bruno, he doesn't need to smirk and cast a weary glance. If it's the mutant, I don't know that. We're going to keep going. All right, then. I take my card out and swipe it against the track, putting in my pin and then move to unlock it. Wait, she was at the kitchen counter. Take my card out and swipe it against the track. We're on the cage. She's opening the cage. Got it. Okay. I was angry, I'll admit, period. I wish we had gotten the golden tickets, comma, but few outbid Saki for their choice subjects. Now we had this one, and he was going home tonight, but we wished we had gotten the children to free them. I wish I had brought more, period. I should have done more, but I didn't. And as the door began to open, I was pushed into it as it was locked in an instant, and between me blinking and looking through the glass again, I saw the male mutant on his feet inches away from me. Hand against the glass like he had moved to push it open, but I didn't feel any change, while Bruno had pushed me hard into the door before locking it. Okay. Okay. So we're going to drop the and. As the door began to open, I was pushed into it. Okay. This sentence is a bit long and kind of clunky a little bit. We need to clean it up. So the action's good, okay, and I've got the visual, I think. Bruno has shoved her against the door before she could open it. So it's kind of slamming it shut again is kind of what I'm getting. If that matches what your intention is, then it's on. But it's very wordy. There's extra words in here. When you write action, you want to be short, direct, and basically your sentences will be shorter when you write actions. As the door began to open, okay, I'd not start with and here. As the door opened, I was pushed into it, or slamming it shut, me blinking, okay, and looking through the glass. I blinked, looking through the glass, and saw the male mutant on his feet inches away from me. Hands against the glass, he had moved to push it open, but I didn't feel any change, while Bruno had pushed me hard into the door before locking it. Did it lock automatically? Yeah, it said locked in an instant, so it automatically locked. He didn't have to lock it because it's already locked. And we don't want to say glass too many times, although it's not as distracting. You just reword this just a little bit so your sentence is a little bit shorter. You can even have multiple. It could be several sentences, but when you write action, it needs to be short and tight because it moves quickly, and so you don't need any extra words, and you don't need to describe thoughts and feelings at this exact time. Action is not the time for thoughts, feelings, and emotions, which you don't have those, but you do have lots of words in here. I think if we shortened it up, it'd be tighter. And you could work on rewording that. Why did you do that? I'm not going to say the curse words because we are on YouTube. So why did you do that? He said, with that customary disapproval in his voice. I'd put a comma and then lowercase on the he said. Why did you do that? He said, with customary disapproval in his voice. You don't have to have the word customary to describe the disapproval. You could just say he said that with disapproval in his voice. Why did you stop me? I fling my elbow back and he catches it. Okay, I'm not sure if we're flip-flopping between past and present tense because I'm betaing and critting other things as we're going. You may want to read through and look at your tense to make sure it's all either present or all past consistently throughout the story. I kind of feel like this one's in the present, and we had talked about this a few sentences ago. Yeah, because right here it says I asked, so this is past. I will say that for me personally, when I write first person, which I don't do it as often as I used to. I used to automatically write in first person. I don't do that as much anymore. It is a little bit easier to write third person past tense. But when writing first person, this happens to me too. And that's because I immerse myself into the scene and I'm visualizing it. And so I start writing it in the present, even though I'm telling the story in the past. So that's kind of, once I figured out why I was doing it or how I was slipping into that, it made it a little bit easier for me to look for it and know that I needed to look for it and that it was an issue. One story I did this in really badly was Beautiful Mistakes. I've gone back and fixed a lot of it in AO3, but someone pointed it out to me and then I realized what I was doing. So why did you stop me? I flung my elbow back and he caught it. Why do you have to read me so well? I asked angrily. You don't even have to say this tag right here because I know that it's her. And I like this action right here really well. It's showing her feelings. So you don't need to tell them. So you don't kill us both, he says in an even tone. Why would he kill us? ? Aren't we on his good side? Look at all the good we accomplished tonight. Bruno smacked the door near my head. Smacked the door. Present tense or past tense, whatever it is, pick one. Don't be delusional. You're not even drunk. I'm not saying the swear words. And again, check your tense. I pushed away from the door while he locks it again. I pushed away from the door while he locked it again. Don't walk away, period. You don't get to gamble tonight. Everything went to plan, he said. Yeah, okay, so really quick. I pushed away from the door while he locked it again. When he locked it again, I kind of thought it was him talking, so I don't know if you have to say that. Let's see. Let's ask him, I say bitterly. Just watch your tense. I don't know what it was. I feel like we were in past tense and now all of a sudden we've jumped to present, but I imagine it's because you're probably getting into the scene as well. Let's ask him, I said bitterly. Defeat in my features, but I still have the energy to play banter. The mutant in the cage looked over to me. I'm disappointed because we did not reach the higher bid, period. We couldn't get those children out even if we contested the Foot Clan's bid. So we got to free you. Yes, that is great. But what about those kids? What will they be dragged through tonight? We need a little bit of space right there. Do you know? I looked over to Bruno, who gives me a squinting glare. Checking our tents. Let's see, who gave me a squinting glare? I don't know about squinting glare, but that'd be picky, so I'm just going to move on. No, question mark, I do, and it's not as cushy as sitting in a quarantine chamber for an hour before you get to go home. We have all this money, and what does it do? Jack squat, I said, bitter sadness lacing my words. I look at the mutant in the cell, period. I don't want you here, period, not in that cage or in this bigger cage of a condo or in this city. I guess that's fine. I don't want you here, not in that cage. That's fine. I don't want to be here, and that's why your friend April and her boys are coming to pick you up. The mutant perked up at the mention, period. I wasn't too surprised, but I was angry. He got to go home to his family under the Foot's radar. We got their intended prize tonight, and they got ours. Big win. He got to go to home. Okay, so here's the thing. We got a run on because we got like 3 commas here. Not a big deal. The mutant perks up at the mention, period. I wasn't too surprised, comma, but I was angry, period. He got to go home to his family, period. Under the Foot's radar, we got their intended prize tonight, and they got ours. Big win. You know, he's capable of understanding this conversation, comma, if not also much more than that. If not, I would just say, take that out. If not more than that. Bruno stated based on our information. So, I say, then why gamble, he shouts. We get to be so reckless with no repercussions following the taking of people. What don't we gamble but our lives every time? I say with that sting in my eyes and a choking in my throat. Okay, let's see real quick. We get to be so reckless with no repercussions following the taking of people. What don't we gamble but our lives? Take out the every time. Okay. I choked out with a sting in my eyes. Or I don't know. I don't know about this. I say with that. Here's the thing. I say my eyes stinging. Okay. Here's the part I'm choked up on. You got the choking here, but here's what I'm choked up on. I say with a sting. I say with that. It's wordy. It's awkward because of its wordy. So and I like the sting in her eyes and the choking of her throat, but there's too many extra words in here that it's not direct. I say, I choke over my words, my eyes stinging with tears or something like that. I would just say, I get what you're trying to do, and I kind of like the stinging eyes. They're very clear, but it reads awkwardly, and I fumbled over it right here. So you want him to kill us instead? Bruno asked more calmly. No, I just don't want to. I glance at the male mutant in the tank and away as the pity I rolls over. As the pity I felt rolled over. Bruno watches me for a moment, picking up his glass and taking a sip. Period. He refrained from expressing too much for my pride. He looked over to the turtle and sighed. Check your tense. Whatever it is, check it. He looked over to the turtle and sighed. Here's another conjunction possibility. You are not responsible for all of the children mutants in the trade. Period. Your directive is not to take that objectively unreasonable task on. Bruno said this with his lips over his drink, but he put his cup down, I believe. Oh, nope, he picked it up and took a sip. Okay. Yep. Bruno said with his lips over his drink. So if you have a cup in your hand and you're drinking and your lips are over the glass, I guarantee that you're not going to say this clearly. You're going to be mumbling. Maybe you are not responsible for all the children mutants in the trade period. Your directive is not to take that objectively unreasonable task on, Bruno said before taking a sip. Whatever. Also, you need a period there. I looked over at the mutant. I moved to lean against the cage on my side. I don't think... whatever this is, it doesn't need to be looking and then moving to lean against the cage. I'm unclear about this. If you're wanting to move her towards him, you might just say, I leaned against the cage. I'm sorry, but you have more fight in you than those kids. As resilient as mutant children are, they break, and it's not right that those people get to decide if they do or not, I said, my head against the container. All right, so since she's speaking, you gave an action that moved her to the crate, or she leaned against the crate, and I just moved this dialogue tag right on up there. I'd move the dialogue. I'd move the speaking right up into this paragraph right here and continue it. Accept the outcome. Remember to stay present, period. This is not the time for a memory to muddle your decision making, Bruno stated, handing the glass to me. I took a sip and held it to my chest. You're right, period. I can't let my work suffer for the sake of I don't say more. Bruno leaned his head to the side as he looked at me. Period. I know. I might say I know, period, here. Sometimes instead of having the pause, if it's kind of a emphatic I know or a solemn I know, in this case it seems solemn, then I would just put the period there and I'd say, I know, period. I know I probably triggered that reaction. Let's move on. I would take that out and say, he tapped his claw against the glass. I nod as he patted my shoulder. Then he brought his hand back silently, period. I yawned to not give away what I noticed. What did she notice? Then mentioned to him, period, you should peel off that latex. It's too odorous for me. Okay, so he was wearing latex. Okay, we're just gonna keep going. He looked at me out my peripheral. He looked at me out my peripheral. Okay, hang on. He looked at me out my peripheral. You would see him out of your peripheral. I don't think he's going to look at you out of your peripheral because he's not you. You're seeing him in your peripheral. From my peripheral, I noticed him digging under his collar to peel up the fake skin, gently not letting his hair catch as he freed his fur. So that's my suggestion on that. And watch your tense, whether it be past or present, whatever it is. Be uniform across the board. I looked at him once he'd shaken himself, period. Better, I note. His hairy mutant canine head smiled with his incisors at me. Okay, so you said he has his hairy mutant canine head smiled with his incisors at me. His hairy... Okay, there's technically nothing wrong with saying his hairy mutant canine head smiles with his incisors at me. But if you read a sentence out loud or it gives you pause and does not flow with the story, then you probably need to look at the wording of it. I get that you're trying to show what he looks like. And and to further support that he's a mutant with a mutant dog, apparently, with his incisors. You might try rewording it with his incisors gleamed as he smiled. And back here, when he shook, because you said that he was shaking himself, you might say something pulling this part up into that sentence. Like his hairy mutant, the hairy mutant part, when he shook, his mutant hair could tumble around. Or, kind of imagine a dog shaking. That's kind of what I got when I read that sentence. So you could actually imply this up here because the hair and the fluffy shaken thing, and just kind of reword it, including this part up here. And then say his incisors, his canine incisors, or he flashed his canine incisors when he smiled at me. Get out of that human suit, period. Miss O'Neill should be here any minute. He rolled his eyes and said under his breath, you first. Period. You first. I make pointed eyes at him, which makes him smile at his sly remark. I nab the glass and take a step to the kitchen, period. I'll finish making that tea you disrespectfully forgot about. I called after him. All right, governor, then walked out to his quarters. Okay, then walks out to his quarters. Did he say that? I'm guessing Bruno said that, so something about Bruno would be better than then. Otherwise, it's kind of reading incomplete. I brewed the tea and let it steep while I went to change into a wrap sweater and silk lounge pants. And another mask to disguise myself with my little human features. What? Okay. All right, I don't know. I'm confused by this sentence. I don't think it should start with and. Maybe when she goes in, she went to change. And when I read that sentence, the way I read it is my suggestion to the changes that I would make to it. Otherwise, it's good. And this one, I'm a little confused about. If she went into another room, I'm assuming she went to like a bedroom or something to change her clothes. You could give a little bit of a picture of like, maybe I'm kind of visualizing like a dresser or a like a vanity with masks on it or something, and something that gives some idea of what this mask looks like. Maybe she sees the mask, picks it up and puts it on, because I'm confused. I'm just a little confused. All this time I've kind of thought she was human because we didn't describe. I'm still kind of thinking she might be. I'm confused because we haven't described what she looks like up to this point. I still don't know what she looks like. The mutant in the cage was sitting on the floor. I brought over a cup of tea and slid it through the food door. He walked over to me, taking the cup, and I raised mine to his before taking a sip. I would omit this right here. I'd omit that. And I'd probably possibly throw a comma in there. He sniffed it before taking a drink. I'll omit that. Then leaned against the glass toward me. Okay. He sniffed it before taking a drink, comma, omit, lowercase, then leaned against the glass towards me. No clothes for me? Like what you see, he asked. Okay. Also, this dialogue, I would move up here to the end of this sentence. No clothes for me? Before he says, like what you see, okay, I guess we'll just keep rolling with that. I caught his eye, period. And I'm just highlighting these and saying the word that I would put in place instead of harping on the tense. I'm just highlighting them to draw your attention to them, and we're moving on. I caught his eye, period. You could hang yourself with fabric, so no, you won't be getting clothes. His eyes narrowed. Okay, rather than saying he narrows his eyes narrowed. I raised a brow to him, period. I know you are going to get picked up soon, and that doesn't change my precautions to ensure your safety. He glanced at me, then in the direction of where Bruno went before changing topics. Okay, so he's getting ready to speak. Move his dialogue up here to the end of this sentence right here. Why is he in the mutant trafficking ring? I didn't get that question often, as most did not usually see Bruno, but he was an NYC native in my brief report I received from the alert system. So why deceive a neighbor? Okay, why is he in the mutant trafficking ring? I didn't get that question often, as most did not usually see Bruno, period. But the mutant was an NYC native per my brief. Or how about per the brief? Yeah, per the brief. But the mutant was an NYC native per the brief report I received from the alert system. So why deceive a neighbor? It's a long story, period. But we do this because we had the luck and fortitude to gain access to free the mutants in the industry. It did not answer his question as he kept looking at me, expectant. That's not my story to tell, I say, looking away. I'm going to pause. This is reading okay, but whenever you have her speaking, if she's still speaking, put her dialogue up at the end of the sentence because it's part of the paragraph. He took another sip and asked something else, period. He's a mutant, period. Let's not do a period. Let's stay with the comma. He's a mutant. Sort of makes sense why he'd want to save his own. I glanced at him, period. Has nothing to do with what you are, period. We'd save a human the same as a mutant from trafficking. I don't suppose you have something to do with convincing him to do that too. He gave me a contemptuous look. I looked at him back. Okay. You're trying to get a dialogue tag in there, so I get why you did that. I would say I met his gaze evenly, something like that, because, I mean, he's flashing her a look of contempt, and she's just not backing down. So I'd say I met his gaze. Do you think one species has the right to be free more than the other? He didn't answer right away, period. Many people deserve to be free. Some need a long life in custody. He put the tea mug in the box and shut it before moving to lean against the wall across from me. People have the right to choose, period. People have the right to choose. Pause. I apologize. People have the right to choose until they break a law that's part of their society's rules. Humans are easier to save than mutants. That's why we do this. I take the cup out as I speak. I guess, did she take the cup from him? Yeah. Okay. Moving on. You like the challenge? He asked with a bitter voice. You might say tone. I kind of want tone there, just to mix it up a little bit. I turned to walk the cups back, but pause. I would just omit that and just say, but pause, because I'm visualizing her walking, but she just stopped. I have the means to move under the radar of the people that would hurt mutants. Anyone could go and try to bring a human to a safe house. I would probably put a period there. Rehabilitate them over years and give them clothes that fit their human bodies, but not mutants. No, they need specialized treatments. Period. If this is this almost reads like it might be part of the sentence. I'm going to read through this, and then you may want to look at the flow. Let's just read through it for a second. I turn to walk the cups back, but pause. I have the means to move under the radar of the people that would hurt mutants. Anyone could go and try to bring a human to a safe house. Rehabilitate them over years and give them clothes that fit their human bodies. But not mutants. No, they need specialized treatments. They live for much longer, so they need systems for growth, curated programs to give them some semblance of normalcy. They need compassion that they won't take from a human, so I supply that. I could hear sarcasm in my voice as I explained a very nitpicked topic differentiating humans from mutants. Okay. I would probably read that out loud, and wherever you put a pause would probably be a comma, and wherever a thought is complete, the period would be at the end of it, because some of that part of this sentence right here read like it belonged over here, so I would just rework some of the periods and commas. I'm not picking up sarcasm in what she's saying. I'm picking up that she's stating her opinion or facts, and so you may want to swap that out for one of those two feelings. I sighed, looking down at the cups, period. I don't expect you to understand. Okay, so she's still talking. She said all that, and she's still talking. All right. I don't expect you to understand, period. It's taken a long time to get so close to the top of it and compete with the extremists to free more people. Everyone we saved is back in the world where they want to be. We can't guarantee their safety, comma. I would omit there, but we can bet we will fight to find them if they go missing. I've never heard of your clan's work, period. Why is that? He asked. He's talking to her, so you don't have to say me. You just drop it. Don't worry about it, period. I get the work done, come hell or high water. I paused a moment while I picked up the cups, period. I'll leave you to your thoughts, period. Call if you need anything. Just don't scream unless you really need to. I don't want to mute the tank. I put the dishes away, taking a cup of tea back to Bruno, period. He lounged on the chase, meditating. Okay. I don't know if you've ever meditated, but it's not really a lounging. So I would just pick one or the other. Either he's meditating or he's lounging. I sat the cup on the coaster before sitting across from him. How about this? I placed the cup on the coaster, taking a seat across from him. Done entertaining? He asked while I went behind the courtesy screen. I'm not good at treating someone. Okay, but she sat down. Whatever, I'm moving on. I'm not good at treating someone nicely in the cage, I said, a bit mad at how I reacted to the turtle's questions. You're right. You don't try to make the rescues like you. It would be too disingenuous, he said, laughing. I don't think that's why, I said, leaning on my knees to look forward to him. Okay. I know, period, but don't worry about that right now. You don't need to worry. You don't need to know any mutants personally, lowercase. He said, brushing off the topic before sipping his tea. I would just say, he said, then took a sip of his tea. Ew, he curls in from the taste while I smirk from his reaction. His face looks confused. Really quick, what does a confused face look like? When he curled from the taste, I knew he didn't like it. So now he's confused. Try to imagine close your eyes and try to imagine what that face looks like. And then when you open them again, you are going to try to describe it with words. So when we want to show a little bit, at this point you're telling. His face looks confused while I carry on with my next remark. So you're telling that you're going to speak. You don't have to. You don't even need this sentence at all. Ew, he curls in from the taste while I smirk from his reaction. So I kind of like this right here. I like it. I just omit that because this is good all by itself. I can tell that she's played a little joke on him. You know, you don't have to keep all the mutants at bay. I am smiling while I say. That's fine. We're going to go. He rolls his eyes, period. We live together, period. I don't want to worry about some mutants popping up and turning on us. His tongue is flicking out of his maw while he speaks. What did you put in this? He asks, pulling back to the conversation. Okay, here's what I would do. I would omit pulling back to the conversation. I would say he asks, period, and I would move this right up here to the end of this sentence. The same thing the turtle and I drank, period. It's the meditative tea that soothes the body. I held back a laugh at his expression of betrayal. I hate that stuff, he said, looking at it with disgust. Drink it, I say, smiling. I said, smiling. He gave me a glare and grimaced before chugging it down. I strode over to him and pat his bare shoulder while he coughed. Sorry. Okay, there's nothing wrong with her moving back over here. I think I've given pause because I felt like she was sitting. Maybe she stood up again. The turtle took it down in sips with not even a slight twitch. I do think that's funny. I took a moment while he suffered from the bitter taste. I'm not feeling great tonight. He cheers the air with his empty glass, period. Same here. A long sleep would be nice, I comment. He turns in his chair, period. Yeah, you could use some extra hours. I looked at him. Yeah, he nodded. You're looking kind of ugly. Some sleep might help. I punched his shoulder as he moved to avoid it getting out of the chair, chuckling. I rolled my eyes and take the cup before heading out with him following behind. So a lot of this in here reads like play-by-play. I said, he said, she said, I moved, I stood, I sat. You can leave it. It's just, I don't know if all the dialogue tags are necessary if you've got action. So I'm just going to leave that, and you could probably put some stuff in a paragraph if it's the same person speaking and it's relative. My phone pinged while we were out in the hall. The turtle was watching us, period. Seems like they're here. You could do a conjunction there. Could you get the door? I asked aloud. Bruno strayed from my path to the kitchen and headed to the door while I rinsed the cups and tried to ignore the stare coming from the turtle. I was nervous, but I always got that way when it came to meeting good people. Good people or new people? She doesn't know that they're good yet. The scum that forced people into trafficking were all the same. Nothing but soulless entities with no redeeming qualities. I felt that numb cold over my shoulder as I looked up to see the woman looking back at me while she walked in. I nodded to her. Bruno walked with her towards the cage where the turtle was. Period. Let's see. The look in his eyes could bring you to tears. Period. Bruno unlocked it, and the turtle rushed out to hold on to the red-haired woman tightly. Period. I set down the cup and turned to dry my hands. Then I heard the sound of a crying gasp, and then they were speaking. Period. We have been looking everywhere for you. Period. We were lucky to find the huntsman. They tracked you down so quickly. She cried into his shoulder while he was quiet, but surely relieved as well. Bruno closed the cage and walked around over to the kitchen. I did not look back over to them, even while he placed his hand on my shoulder, but then he had to go and break my concentration by rubbing it while I stood there listening. I sobered up and walked out of his grasp toward the two with him following beside me. April turned in the turtle's arms to face us. I can't thank you enough, she said, while wiping her eyes. I just say she said wiping her eyes. Back here you said you sobered up. I didn't. Oh, yeah. We haven't expressed that Tala had any feelings in here. So when she sobered up, I'm guessing it was because she was having some feels from seeing them, but you didn't describe those anywhere. And if I'm wrong, I've misunderstood something. Let's see. I nod to her. I guess look at overall how many times we're nodding. No need for that. It's what's right. We were hesitant to release you, but I'm sorry for keeping you in there. You can do a conjunction there. His eyes, though hidden in her hair, found me and did not react to my acknowledgement. I didn't mind that reaction either, period. Bruno spoke up next. Okay. We'll transport you home without a trace if you'd like. He gestured contently, exposing his canines. I'm not sure about this sentence. He gestured contently, exposing his canines. Typically, a dog shows its canines for a number of different reasons, but not because they're content. It doesn't necessarily mean they're angry or anything or irritated. Sometimes it does, and that's what we commonly know. And typically what I do when I'm writing is I write expressions the way that readers commonly know them so that it's very clear and simple to read and not left for interpretation. Oh, we have a vehicle in the garage, April said, which elicit a whispered sentence from the turtle, to which she nodded. Bruno glanced at me a moment before gesturing towards the lift, period. Then let's take our passage to avoid any meetings with other guests in the building. He began walking toward the lift while I watched them go, period. April hesitated, looking at me another moment before the turtle led her forward. I followed at a distance. Bruno, after getting in the lift with them, raises an eyebrow to me. Okay, I followed at a distance, period. Bruno, after getting in the lift, comma, raised an eyebrow at me. I would say at me, and I'd omit the with them. I'll grab the case and meet you all down there. He looked over at the turtle, who was now holding April's hand while they stood, now turned around towards me. So kind of what seems to be consistently happening is we have all these extra words showing which way someone's facing, which way someone's moving, standing, sitting. It's very easy to do that when you are writing. So when you go back over it, you might look at ways to do a show an action rather than tell a story. You're telling, ultimately we're all telling a story, but you're telling every single movement, and some of it's not necessary. He looked over at the turtle, who was now holding April's hand, period, or hand, comma. While they stood facing me. There we go. He looked over at the turtle, who was now holding April's hand, while they stood facing me. I didn't see their eyes and walked off to retrieve the medicine. But they're turned. Okay, they're facing her, but she didn't see their eyes. Okay. He looked over at the turtle, who was now holding April's hand, period. I'd omit all this because I'm confused. I didn't see their eyes and walked off to retrieve the medicine. The silver case was large and had a matching one next to it, so I grabbed both and found my phone ringing while the lift was on its way back up. Huntsman, I spoke into the mic. Ah, Miss Huntsman, it's Miss. Okay, when you write the word Miss, you don't have to have a period after it. You would at MRS as in Ms or MS as in Miss, but actual Miss, you don't need a period here. So, Miss Huntsman, it's Alex Guerin. How are you? He asked cordially. It's 1 a.m, Mr. Guerin. How do you think I am? I say sarcastically. I said. Oh, yes. Well, you must be busy. Well, it's 10 a.m. over here, so I guess I did not get the email about your travels. Sorry, but since I have you on the line, he was very clearly not concerned with the time. You don't have to say very, you can omit that, and I would watch some periods, maybe throw some periods in there instead of commas. Not that I expect you to listen to my assistant, comma, but you must have said something for her to forward this call, period. So what did you call for? I asked, pushing through the drab dialogue. Right. Well, I was attending one of those silly board meetings, and I was requested to get an audience with Manicho, he said to begin his request. And you know he has been very secluded, comma, but Mr. Heilman needs an audience. His voice never lacked more arrogance than when I wasn't around for more than 2 months, but his demand came just as the lift opened up to me. So the Heilman is your backbone for this conversation, is it? I asked. You don't have to say sarcastically. She could even demand. You could try some different actions there. I demanded. Or I assumed. So the Heilman is your backbone for this conversation, is it? I assumed. He began to talk again, feeling the conversation shift as I continue. How about this? He began to talk again, and by the way, I'm just changing the tense to be consistent. He began to talk again, and I'd omit feeling that and just say the conversation shifting the conversation. He began to talk again, shifting the conversation. Well, when he petitions for the medical power of attorney over Minicho, I'll enjoy watching the government shoot him down. In my mind, I envisioned it while the lift began descending. That's not what he began while using his tough voice. I'm sure it wasn't, period. Why would you threaten my father's health this late on a Friday night of all times? That would be idiotic. No, you are trying to force an audience with a man who you have never met and never will meet. He huffed an angry breath before saying lightly, okay, if he's doing all this talking, I feel like she was saying something in here. I'm unclear if the dialogue makes some sense, but I'm a little confused at who's talking. It almost seems like she said something in here. One of these lines was supposed to be hers. I'm not sure. Was she talking up here? I think maybe she was talking up here and then he responded. Okay. If you have sense for this company, maybe letting the rest of the board meet with the chairman would strengthen the lift was getting to the end, and this agitated state I was in was not what I wanted to show to those at the bottom. Okay. The lift was getting to the end, and I didn't want everyone to see me agitated. This is a long worded, just reword it so that you're using less words to say what you mean in a smoother way. What I would do is rewrite it and then say it out loud to see if it's very clear and concise. If you stumble over it when you read it out loud, you probably need to reword it again. Okay. If you have sense for this company, maybe letting the rest of the board meet with the chairman would strengthen the lift was getting to the end, and this agitated state I was in was not what I wanted to show those at the bottom. Dead, when you should tell us, but if he's lost cognition, we need his stakes distributed for... I only caught a little of that, but I could piece together what I did not pay attention to. You sound more and more like you don't like your job, I say coldly. He was quiet before asking, what? Am I missing the part where you get to control Minicho's life in a single drunken sentence? I hope your ex-wife knows how lucky she is not to have to be forced around the people you like. I was getting angry. The bastard was really insisting. Minicho was incapable rather than just indisposed. There's a couple spots back there where you just need a little bitty space, but I'm going to keep moving. The doors opened, but I didn't see the people behind them as I walked forward, moving the magnetic cases on top of one another with me. Calmly, as well as with reined-in hostility, I spoke into the phone. Period? We need a punctuation here. You called me at the worst possible time to give me some BS excuse to just curse his health after some delusion your elitist fraught can't conceive that maybe good people like to suffer their existence without the added atrocity of your presence in it. He was quiet as a mouse on the line, but I knew he would not speak out after that, period. You are banned from contacting me directly, Taylor. Since you are on the line, make sure to write that down, and I'll be sure to let all your friends know that you just lost a connection with the Huntsman group. Taylor, for her part, said, yes, ma'am. Who's Taylor? Wait, who's Taylor? He was quiet as a mouse on the line, but I knew he would not speak out after that. What was his name? Was it Taylor? Was it? Was it? I don't want to back up because I don't want to lose my spot. Okay, let's see. It's Alex. So who's Taylor? Okay, I'm going to just note that I paused here, and that's my question and that I'm confused. So you as the author need to revisit that. He was quiet as a mouse on the line, but I knew he would not speak out after that. You are banned from contacting me directly, Taylor. Also, that's a statement. It's not a question. So the punctuation's also throwing me off. And then we need a capital here. Since you are on the line. Oh, okay. So someone else is listening, I'm guessing. Since you were, how about this? I know that Tala is talking now. So he was quiet as a mouse on the line, but I know he would not speak out after that period. You are banned from contacting me directly now. I would say Alex, and then say period. And then say Taylor question mark. Okay, that would clear this up. You are banned from contacting me directly now, Alex, period. Taylor question mark, capitalize. Since you are on the line, make sure to write that down, period. And I'll be sure to let all your friends know that you just lost a connection with the Huntsman group. Taylor, for her part, said, yes, ma'am. I would put a new paragraph on that. Or maybe leave it there. Maybe even leave it there. You know what? Leave it there. All you needed was a little bitty fix right there. Tiny fix. Took me a minute to catch up with you, but I got there. I closed my eyes tight before signing off, period. Good night, comma, Taylor. I closed the call and shook my head, looking out towards the empty part of the garage I'd walked to, passing the mutants in April so as not to gain a misunderstanding. That's a lengthy sentence. I closed the call and shook my head, walking out towards the empty part of the garage, past the mutants in April so as not to gain misunderstanding. I would omit the I walked to and just say I closed the call and shook my head, looking out towards the empty part of the garage, period. I'd walked right past the mutants in April so as not to gain a misunderstanding. There you go. What was Garen spouting? Bruno asked. I took a deep breath before turning around to find the massive turtle group in April before looking back to Bruno. He's trying to meet with the head chairman by threatening the veracity of his condition. So tuck this little bad boy at the end of that sentence right there. Wow, really? Was he snorting pixie dust on the phone while he said that? Bruno exaggerated, but I could see him tense up just the same. It was minute as always. It was minute, always was. I would say as always, I guess. I don't know. Just, you try to write the way you speak, and that makes it easier for your reader. Might as well have, so a year's grounding should help him. You never want to see him. Are you sure you're not just staving off the inevitable? I look away at that. Probably he's slimy, but I'd rather him be our arrogant slug than someone else's. That brings a smile to Bruno's face. The expression relaxes me somewhat. I look towards the group then, period. I didn't try to register their faces yet, glancing over at them to look back at the turtles I met first. I start walking over to him, stopping a few feet away, period. Sir, I say to get his attention. Okay, this is very long. I keep thinking I'm almost there, but I'm 2 hours in and we're almost there. We're going to keep going. We're almost there. I kept his eyes for a moment. I wish I could say I was glad I could bring him to his family or them here, or that his eyes were a beautiful large blue that made the intense looks he had given me more soft than what's possible for a giant mutant turtle. I wish I could look at his family straight and feel the joy they have to be whole again. This is not a terrible sentence at all. Or paragraph. I really like it, but I would look for some periods and break that up a little bit. Just in, can you make a sentence end and start a new sentence in a couple places? But that guilt, the hesitancy keeps me back. No further can I reach to appreciate this warmth. So I say, period. I know, sorry about that. But that guilt, the hesitancy keeps me back. No further okay. You don't need this dialogue tag. You can just move this lovely dialogue up to the end of this paragraph right here. I'm glad we were successful, period. I hope you rehabilitate well, and if you need us again, the huntsmen are always there. Omit that period. I bow my head before turning and pushing forward the cases, period. As you said, Miss April, comma, Miss April, if you have use of these, please take them, period. There are instructions and chemical charts for everything on the envelopes inside. I passed them over to her while I tapped the metal once and looked over to who placed their hand on it. Thank you. If she says thank you, you need to say who's saying thank you. If it's her, stick it up at the end here. If it's someone else, there you go. I wasn't expecting his voice to startle me as his words came out. Okay, I'd kind of just, you know what, leave it. Let's just keep going. I was expecting his voice to startle me as his words came out. I looked at the turtle who spoke, and the blue eyes were hopeful towards me. It gutted me as I saw the sigh escape him, exhaustion drawn in his posture. He took a step forward, and I saw him lean too far. Quickly, I rushed up and placed my hands on his shoulder and plastron. "Easy there," I said as he grabbed my arm. I took his adrenaline. I could see his adrenaline was out, and he was running off fumes. Gone was the bustling, strong mutant that was ready to push through the door. "You're a mutant?" he asked, his voice small. I didn't respond as he held my shoulder to raise himself. "My family explained it all to me, period. How can I?" He began, but I stopped him quickly, pushing him up straight to my eye level. "Don't. Human or not, this is what I do. You don't owe me anything. The best way to not take this saving for granted would be to not let them catch you again. Do that and I'll appreciate it." I speak quickly, taking my hands back as my gaze lowers from his eyes. "Watch your tense, past or present." "I'll do my best," was what raised them again, period. I saw the smile I hadn't known would fit his tired features so well. I nod, a small smile rounding my lips behind my mask, period. "Good, I hope I don't see you around, period." Michelangelo Hamato. Such a full, strong name for this person. My chest felt heavy as I spoke. Michelangelo Hamato. I found his eyes again, period. "Don't need the Huntsman group again, but if any of you need our assistance, don't hesitate. We will be there." I say so confidently as I receive a nod from Michelangelo. I turn away and head for the lift, period. "See you upstairs," I said to Bruno, who is grinning, before nodding to me and began talking to the group. Tense. Watch your tense. I don't turn around as the lift closes and ascends. I was happy, period. I was happy they would be going home now. But that forlorn feeling began creeping in, and I was still heavy-hearted as I laid in my bed. I don't remember crawling into. As I laid in a bed I don't remember crawling into. I didn't ask their names. I must have seemed like such a cold person. I fell asleep with those anxious thoughts of what I wanted to know, while understanding it was better this way. Less connections, more expedient saving and releasing. Because that's what I was for, and that was it. Okay. So you very clearly gave her coldness throughout the entire thing, with moments of her noting him. So you were definitely going for that, and you achieved it. So that's good. I like that the story has a plot to it. I can see that there's a lot going on there. There's a lot to learn and figure out. Some of it you can figure out on your own as you read. So it's good. It's interesting. I would just try working on the being clear and concise. I've given lots of tips throughout there. I like the story. It's interesting. I still do not have an image of Tala. I don't know what she looks like. Just because her brother is a canine mutant does not mean she is. I don't know how she got mutated. I don't know, she could have, I don't know if she was genetically altered, or I don't know what that was. And we don't have to know that what her story is yet, because you're telling that. But we should have some kind of clear understanding of what she looks like and what kind of mutant she is. And I still don't have that at this point. And we are after a very nice long chapter. So I've given you lots of feedback. I hope that it's helpful. I do like the story. There's some really nice things. I like your prose a little bit. I think if you did a couple of these little things I pointed out, that it might be a smoother read to your reader, and then they're going to get more out of your story, which is what you want, because your writing deserves it. So I'm going to give you a kudos on a good job, and I'm going to thank you, and I hope that I have helped, and thank you for letting me share your story in your first chapter.